Then start to layer on your top design. You can trace your design first with wool and then fill it in. Also cover the overlapping part with your top design color. If you're making a small pattern and you need to have the opposing thing going on, you're going to have these straight ones here, but then to have it be opposing going this way, you're just going to take some, mess it up like this, and then thin it out, and then put it on top. And then you're going to go back over with another straight one. I'm going to overlap my colors just a little bit so that they'll blend together. While it's dry, the design can be moved around. As you get close to the surface of your finished design on top, you can start to add little decorations that can be sandwiched in between the wool layers. Get creative! Mix your wools, layer colors, and experiment. Have fun! This is a fun craft, so go at it! To trap decorations, use crisscrossing thin layers of wool. To blend the color, use thin layers. Also, using a transitional color between two colors can help them to blend together. When you're happy with your design, fold the mesh over it. If you need to make your piece smaller to fit on your mesh, you can squash it in a bit and play with it because it's very flexible right now. Normally you want to have the entire project covered with mesh, however, this one's too fat. So we're going to try to squish it in a little bit, but if it doesn't get completely covered, oh well. You can take two boards, put one underneath the mesh, put one on top, and then hold it with both hands and smoothly flip it over. Now we take the mesh off. The tufts of wool that you set down right now are going to end up being the floor inside of the cave. Just like last time, stack layers of crisscrossing wool fibers. This side will also have an overlap, but I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'm going to use some extra color here for filler. Then add cord fiber until it reaches the optimum thickness. Now I'm ready for that psychedelic pizza design for the very bottom. Now it looks good enough to eat. Then when you're done, tuck the overlapping part of the cave's bottom into the cave's top and the resistance between those two. Tuck the inner layers together and then tuck the outer layers together and smooth them out so they're pretty. Buy wool that says it can be felted. When you order wool, make sure you email the seller and ask for a bulk order. Don't just add items to a cart and buy it. If you ask for a bulk order, that will save you money. Smooth and rub the fibers together to help them stick together. And I made this out of the extra piece of the resist material, and I'm going to use it for my door. I'm going to tape that in place. Tuck the door fibers in so that they're rounded out. Rub them to make them stick. Make your final adjustments. Now cover it with mesh. And next we'll wet felt it. Make sure you have a tarp under your table or you have towels nearby to catch the spills. Lift up the project and underneath of it, put your bamboo mat or mats or your bubble wrap. If you're using bubble wrap, have the bubbles facing the wool. I'll use this art I made to lift this up. Bubbles will be facing up for this underlayer. Bubble side up. I'll use bamboo mats on top and bubble wrap underneath. If they're not big enough to cover the entire thing, then just move them every single time you unwrap it. Just move it to a different spot. Prepare your water. Add enough soap to make the water feel slippery. Use the hottest water you can stand to touch. Gloves can protect your hands from heat and help to agitate. Now, drip water onto your wool project. Do it a little bit at a time. You do not want to oversaturate it. Just make sure it gets wet throughout it evenly and that there's no dry spots. You can tell dry spots because they're lighter in color usually, and also they look fluffy. Once it's evenly wet, press down the wool and rub it very gently in small motions with your hands. Once it's flat, roll it up with agitating surfaces on both sides. Roll it in small motions. Gently lift the wool and then rotate it 90 degrees. You're going to want to keep rotating and rolling because if you don't rotate it, it's going to become an egg shape. So you want it to be evenly rolled. Then add new hot water. If it's stubborn and not felting, rub ice cubes on it before you add the new hot water. Having the shock of different temperatures will help it felt. And keep in mind that solid whites and dark colors tend to show more cat hair. How long this takes will depend on what type of wool you use as well as your technique. Hotter water gets faster results, as does olive oil soap. Flip it over and rub the other side. You can also stick your hands inside of the cave and rub the inside walls to help them felt as well. Flip it over and rub the other side. Be patient and do a thorough job, rubbing all areas evenly. Rub the edges well so that they're smooth and rounded. Squeegee out the excess water with your hands. It's done when you can pinch the fibers and they stay in place. The surface should be one smooth fabric. However, some breeds of wool, like Corriedale, will leave a fuzzier surface. Now you can remove the bubble wrap, mat, and also the mesh. Take out your resist. Squeeze all the extra water out of it.
It's a rainbow mountain! It's a rainbow mountain!
Fill it with towels for 10 minutes, and then take them out and put dry towels back in it and stuff it, and then leave that for 10 minutes. Remove those towels and then fill the thing to the brim till you can't fit anymore. Fill it with plastic bags. Stuff clean fabrics inside of bags to take up more space. Smooth it out with your hands. It will keep to the shape that it dries in, so make sure it looks pretty when it dries. If your design drifted, like this, you can correct it with a felting needle. Carefully needle felt at an almost horizontal angle to the fabric. This will move the surface fibers sideways without digging them in deeper. To add new wool fibers, poke them in superficially. Also, you can poke them in a little bit horizontally, but do not poke them in straight vertically, or they can show through the other side. Make sure you exit at the same angle that your needle enters, otherwise you may break the felting needle. Also, keep it at the same angle all the time, otherwise it may break. For larger jobs, there are felting needle holders that may hold many needles at once. I'm going to trim my brim. Keep your scraps because you can reuse them as core fiber for other projects. Then, leave the plastic bags in the cave and allow it to dry completely. While it's drying, you can do other things like making decorations such as needle felted ones.